The concept of developing these biodiversity parks evolved in the year 2002 when the former Honorable Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, Shri Vijay Kapoor, expressed his concern about the unsustainable urbanization happening in Delhi. Sir facilitated the establishment of Delhi Biodiversity Foundation, which became functional by the year 2004. Under this foundation, a team of scientists, technical staff, and the multitasking staff with Professor C.R. Babu as the project in charge at Center for Environmental Management of Degraded Ecosystem, University of Delhi, started working in collaboration with Delhi Development Authority for the development and management of 6 biodiversity parks across the capital city. The prime goal of these parks is to conserve and preserve ecosystem of the two major life supporting system of Delhi, the river Yamuna and the Aravalli Hills. Each biodiversity park is headed by scientists in charge. And today, we are fortunate enough to have amongst us Dr. Fiaz Ahmed, scientist in charge, Yamuna Biodiversity Park, the oldest amongst all 6 parks. Sir has a doctorate degree in the field of wildlife conservation and his
Madam,
specialty
I'm
is in
sorry to request you. Please let me speak. I have another engagement. I have to rush. Please let me speak.
restoration ecology. He has authored a book entitled Kuno Wildlife Sanctuary, Preparing a Second Home for Asiatic Lions. Sir has also been honored with Carl Zeiss Award for his excellence in the field of wildlife conservation. Along with Sir, we also have amongst us Ms. Preeti Vora, an active blogger on Delhi Greens, who loves to explore nature and impart environmental education. She has done her master's in the field of environmental studies from University of Delhi and master's in elementary education from Jamia Millia Islamia University. Presently, she is serving as Nature Education Officer at Yamuna Biodiversity Park. We are grateful to both of you for having accepted our invitation, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, Fiaz, sir.
Could you hear me now? Good morning. Actually,
Yes,
I have to rush. If you are listening to me, I'm quickly
sir.
finish
Can
my
you start
talk and hand
with
it over to Preeti. Actually, if you remember, the legendary ecologist E.O. Wilson has very clearly suggested that we are in a bottleneck of overpopulation and waste food
can you start
consumption.
with
That could you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. Please continue, sir. You are audible. You are audible, sir.
Ask them, please, not to speak in between. Yeah. So you know, we are in fact heading towards 6th mass extinction. It is very evident from the incidences like COVID-19 pandemic. So what are the drivers which are leading to such extinction? When you look at it, the major drivers is land use change. When you look at the entire globe, today there is agriculture field, tomorrow it becomes multi-story building. And what is suggest, if you lose those precious land and you construct infrastructure, you are losing many other things which we could not understand. Not only that, when you look at the uh, entire system, in fact, over exploitation due to population growth leads to agriculture intensification, pollution. Invasive species is another major issue, like Prosopis juliflora, lantana, but many Eichhornia in wetland. Many fishes and animals are acting like an invasive species in our ecosystem. And when climate change become a reality, all this comes together and it is a serious problem. So therefore, what is the cornerstone solution? When you have so many, if you have such problem, there is a cornerstone of evolution which says mutual regulation of population or population sizes of a species. When you have a limited resource, you need to see that your population get regulated. And that is a natural phenomena. And therefore, COVID-19 probably came into existence, uh, actually minimizing human population without looking at, it's a very random elimination of human beings from the population when you see. So when diseases appears whenever there is a problem at ecosystem level. And what are those problems? When you have a very simplified ecosystem due to infrastructure development, then you face such problem. And most of the time, pathogen tend to what you call jump out and spill over from the system and creates problem for the human beings. Similarly, when you look at the what you call when you have a complex ecosystem, most of the time these pathogen tend to get diluted within, because your system is so complex. You have top canopy, middle story, ground vegetation, which creates
Sir, can you kindly unmute and speak? We cannot hear you, sir. Kindly unmute and speak, sir. We can't hear you, sir. Aditya, sir. Aditya, sir. Can you kindly unmute and speak, sir? Dr. Preeti? Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
now I will pass it to Preeti. Actually, I have to rush. And Preeti, could you hear me? Preeti, could you hear me?
Sir, you are audible, sir. Now you are audible. You are audible now.
Not listen to anything. But I am in a remote areas, standing in Aravali Basti Park, unfortunately.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
now Preeti will take over, and Preeti, you take on the trail of Yamuna Basti Park, and probably they will understand better, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you
Yes,
so
sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So a very warm welcome to everyone. I hope my voice is clear to everyone. I'm Preeti. I work as a nature education officer at Yamuna Biodiversity Park. And Dr. Fayaz has given us an introduction that why biodiversity is important. And if we conserve biodiversity, then a lot of problems that we are facing today can be resolved. So I'll be taking you today on the trails of Yamuna Biodiversity Park, which is a very special place located right in the center of the Delhi. And this place is now acting as a model for other states so that they can also see that how we can uh, conserve the biodiversity, how we can do the restoration, and what are the benefits that we can take out of it. So first of all, I would like to define that what is biodiversity, which in itself is a very important thing to understand. So biodiversity includes variety and variability among living organisms. Most of the time when we define biodiversity, we include variety only, but we need to understand that variability also plays a very important role. So variability in the form of genes, and this includes the diversity within the species and in the ecosystem. And one of the very best example of this is like we all are aware of Asiatic lion, that they are only in in their last home, that is that is Gir Wildlife Forest, Gujarat. But earlier they were spread across the whole Asia. That's why the name is Asiatic lion. But now they are only restricted to Gir Forest, Gujarat. And when they were introduced to Gir Forest, Gujarat, they were hardly very few in number. And now, over the period of time, they have multiplied among themselves, and now they are in good number. But what is the problem they are facing? There is inbreeding depression. Because of this inbreeding depression, their genetic variability is very poor. So a small viral disease, when it comes in one of the member of the species, it spreads, it spread quickly among all. So like in 2018, they suffered from canine distemper disease. So we need to understand that we need to make more and more homes for such species. We need to spread them more in number so that their genetic variability will get vast.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Are you presenting your slides, ma'am?
No, ma'am, I'm still on the first slide. Now I will change.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Continue, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. So this Yamuna Biodiversity Park is a home for many birds, many animals, and many other living species. So I'll be taking you through the slides, and this is a very unique photograph which shows that how this area has been restored in just 16, 17 years. And as ma'am has rightly said, this work was started in 2002. When this land was given, this was a whole barren piece of land, which was a kind of a rejected site from the nearby people. And this is on the floodplains of River Yamuna. And I'll show you the journey of River Yamuna in Delhi. So this is phase one. This whole park is divided into two phases, phase one and phase two. So phase one is in 157 acres, where the major restoration part has been done, and phase two lies in 300 acres, which is quite in big area, and this lies on the active floodplains, right? So this is phase two area where we have a very huge wetland in 100 acres. This is again a man-made restored wetland, and River Yamuna is somewhere 500 meters away, somewhere here. So if you come this time, you will find that the whole area is covered with water, because recently Delhi has experienced very good rain, and because of that there is whatever the excess water was there, it has come out, and these wetlands, they have absorbed the water. So slowly and slowly, when we will move inside, we will see that how these wetlands are important, and what are the benefits of these wetlands to the nearby community and to the whole Delhi population. Now this map will give you more clarity. I was talking about two phases of Yamuna Biodiversity Park. This is phase one, which is in 157 acres. This is phase two, which is in 300 acres. There is a man-made corridor which connects both of the phases. And this is River Yamuna. River Yamuna is coming from Uttarakhand to Haryana, then to Delhi, and then leaves to Uttar Pradesh. So in Delhi, when it travels, it covers around 52 kilometers of the distance, and it enters from Delhi-Haryana border, and it leaves to Yamuna, and it leaves to Uttar Pradesh, right? And here in Delhi, if you have, visited Delhi, and if you have read in the newspapers that this whole stretch of 52 kilometers is divided into different parts. So till there is a place known as Wazirabad. So till Wazirabad, the water quality is very good. It is very clean. But after crossing Wazirabad, the look of the river changes. How it gets changes? Because a lot of big drains, around 22 big drains, which are carrying the raw sewage water, they come and they merge into River Yamuna. And the flow is also reduced because of heavy pollution. And because of that, the water is stagnant here. You cannot put your arms, your legs, you cannot hold that water in your hand. So this is a very, bad condition, especially in the other part of the downstream of the River Yamuna. So this Yamuna Biodiversity Park is situated on the floodplain. You can see that the immediate area near River Yamuna is the floodplain area. And this, if you see this area is highly encroached in the past 100 to 100 years. Earlier, there were beautiful Tamarix phragmitis forest community was there. A lot of birds used to come here. A good wildlife was there. There is a like University of Delhi is very close to this area, and the incidence of last Asiatic lion was seen in 1805, and it was very near to this area that there were incidents that yes, Asiatic lion was also found in this area. But after that, when the deforestation took place and a lot of construction activity and agricultural fields were set up, and because of many other activities, and we have encroached the land here in this area, the species, they get less in number, and this land was badly affected by the people's activity. So if you see, the major restoration activity has been done in this phase one area. Why there was a need of doing restoration in this area? What was the major issue? Look at this road, which is known as Jagatpur Band. This road was constructed in like in 1980s, when there was huge flooding in Delhi. So the whole area was drowned under flood water. So at that time, what the local government decided, they thought that they will construct a highly elevated road so that the flood water will not come to this area. And because of that, they constructed the road, and the road goes like this. And after a few years, the property of the soil, it started changing. What was the reason? As this was a floodplain area, so we all are aware that when a flood comes, it carries along with a lot of minerals, salt, silt, and many other things. So the excess salt was deposited here, and the leaching out process was not possible because of the construction of this road. Okay, so because of that, the uh, content of salt in the soil was very high, and the salinity was around 9.8. It was at 9.7, more than 9 at many places. So, soil was having a lot of salt in it. Because of that, the area was becoming degraded day by day, and the people who were living nearby, they were not aware of this fact. And as ma'am said in the introduction, that at that time the LG of the Delhi, he formed a team. He approached Professor C.R. Babu, who was at that time the pro vice chancellor of University of Delhi. He formed a team of scientists who were from different areas. They worked on this land. They took samples of soil, they tested it in the lab, and they found that yes, the pH was very high. So I'm showing you the next slide, how the initial interventions were done and how this land was again turned into a fertile land again. So this was the original condition. Very less, plants were there, and huge patches of salt were found everywhere. And when salinity was checked, I told you it was around 9.8, 9 at many places. So at that time, we thought that we will introduce halophytes. As there were few halophytes in this area, so we thought that we will introduce more and more number of halophytes, which are salt-loving plants, which includes few grasses like Leptoclova fusca, Suda fruticosa, and other species of halophytes. And after few years, we found, yes, the salinity was reducing. So this is basically the example of phytoremediation, where a plant was introduced, few species of plants were introduced, and then salinity was reduced. And after a few years, when we checked the pH, we found that yes, it is coming to normal. And then we started introducing more and more number of grasses. And these grasses, they all are the native grasses of this area. And we have planted all the native plant species in this area, which were originally there in the Yamuna River, Yamuna floodplain basin area. So, how are the grasses selected based on their water holding capacity, and all the things were taken into consideration. So I'll be showing you some of the important grass species. Like this grass is known as Sporobolus grass, and you will find it in good amount. There are huge patches of Sporobolus grass in the area, and you will find that a lot of animal activity, they are very active in this grass area. It is a very light grass, and this is basically palatable. Then we introduced another grass which is known as vetiveria, which is also known as khas in Hindi. Khas is a very popular drink in summers, especially in the northern parts of the India. And when there are heat waves in the local area, in the nearby area, so people, they take the khas drink and they drink it so that they are not affected with the heat waves. So khas is basically extracted from the roots of the vetiveria grass, and vetiveria is having a very good water holding capacity. So it grows very well where the water level is very high, and this area is a floodplain area. So deep under the ground, you will find that the water level is very, very high. So keeping in mind that where the moisture is high and where the groundwater level is high, we have introduced this type of grass in our area. And in winters, a lot of seeds comes, and for eating them, a lot of birds and insects, they come. Next grass that we are having is Desmus tachia, which is also known as kusha. Kusha is a Hindi word, and Kush is believed to be the son of Lord Rama. There is an old story that Saint Valmiki has created Kush out of this grass. So from that day, this grass becomes very sacred. Although this is not palatable, none of the herbivore likes to eat it because it is very hard and the edges are very sharp. But this grass grows very well in the salty soil. It has helped us a lot in removing the salt from the soil. And this is very dense. You can see the patch is very dense. So a lot of herbivores, they can easily hide inside. A lot of insects, they also hide inside the grasses. So grasses has also played a very important role in absorbing the rainwater. Whatever the rainwater comes, they reduce the surface runoff, and all the water with the help of the root goes into the ground. So the water level is very high in this area. This is again a very good important species of grass, which is Sanchrus species, and this grass has helped a lot in fixation of many micronutrients into the soil. So keeping in mind different varieties of grasses were introduced, and this is also palatable. So next we thought that we will introduce a conservatory of fruit plants into our area. And what this conservatory of fruit plant will do, in this area we will plant a lot of fruit yielding trees, and which are all the native trees of this region. Like we have Menalcara hexandra, we have Menalcara sapota, pomegranate, Feronia limonia, and other species. And keeping in mind that this area will attract lots of pollinators. For pollination, a lot of butterflies and insects will come. Then fruiting will take place. Then a lot of birds will come, herbivores will come. So like this, a lot of plants were introduced. And so this is Menalcara hexandra, which is also known as khirni in the local language. It is a small yellow colored fruit. I mean, very small, like 1 to 1.5 inches, not more than that. And the fruiting take place from April to June. The fruits are very sweet, and it give you the taste of sapota because they are of same family. And a lot of pollinators and birds, they like to feed on the nectar and the fruit. Then we have very popular tree. We have tamarind. Tamarind is also native of this area. So basically the pulp of the fruit is eaten by many parakeets, squirrels, and small birds. Then we have sapota. And like these days, and in winter also, we are having good fruits, good sized fruits on the trees. They all are eaten by the small birds, squirrels. So now you can see that the habitat formation is taking place. Now you can see that we have given what we planned, that we will give them the suitable habitat. We will provide them food. We will provide them resting spaces, shelters, nesting material, and we hope that yes, birds will come to this area. So like this, a lot of fruits are on a single tree. So you can see we have plenty of fruits here. Then we have Feronia limonia, which is also known as ketha in a local language. This is a very popular fruit in some parts of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and some parts of Rajasthan also. And it is highly citrus. And popularly, it is known as elephant apple because elephant also loves to eat this fruit in wild, right? And a very beautiful butterfly, line butterfly, lays its eggs on the leaves of this plant. So like this is pomegranate. So you can see the whole orchard area is having fruit yielding trees everywhere, which is a very good home for many birds and insects. Then this is a trail which takes us towards the more inside the orchard area, and then we will go to the wetland area, and on both sides we are having the trees, fruit yielding trees. Now this is a wetland area which is in phase 1. This is constructed wetland, and this is known as the deep wetland area. And you can see some birds are sitting here. I will talk about all these birds. So now how this area has been created, now we will see this. So initially, when in 2004, when we start looking for the wetlands and for the moist species of soil, we found that yes, the water level was very high in this area, and few of the grasses like tamarix and phragmites, they were growing. And these are the indicator grasses. Wherever these grasses grow means the water level is very high. So we started, we did the marking, and then we started digging the soil, and we found yes, the groundwater level was very high. And after that, the shoreline vegetation was done. Some underground or underwater plants were introduced, some floating vegetation were introduced, and initially there were no, food material or fishes inside the water. Uh, and we thought that yes, we would like to, we were expecting that migratory birds and resident birds will come, they will stay here. And this all was an hypothesis. So we introduced 18 different species of fishes, which are native to River Yamuna in Delhi. And we introduced those fishes initially. And as per our expectation in 2005, we found a lot of migratory birds coming to the area. Now you can see a very good population of fishes are in water. They are small, big, very big. So all sizes and different varieties of fishes you can see. And for eating them, we have lots of residents and migratory birds coming since 2005 here. So the migratory birds which are coming here, they are coming from some parts of Leh and Ladakh, China, Europe, Central Asia, Russia, and they come in very good number. And like this year also, we are expecting that our wetlands are filled with water, and a lot of, good vegetation is all around. So we are expecting them at the end of September or in the beginning of October, that few pairs of birds will come. And as the winter will proceed, like winter here is in, December end or January peak, we are having very strong winter here. So at that time, the park looks so beautiful. The wetlands are covered with the migratory birds, both the wetlands phase 1 and phase 2. So here are few of the species I'm telling you. This is northern shoveler, this is pintail, then we have common coot, and we have like this is red crested pochard, which is a very beautiful duck. It is seen in phase 2 of Yamuna Biodiversity Park. And earlier this place was the only home for this migrant bird. It used to come here, and lot of photographers, students and researchers, they all come during the winter time, and they take they spend their hours in clicking the photographs of these beautiful birds all around. These are great cormorants, and they are very good in size. We are also having little cormorants and Indian cormorants. They are resident birds, which you can see throughout the year. But these are great cormorants. You can see them in the winter time only here in Yamuna Biodiversity Park and in Delhi and area around it. And they come from some parts of Leh and Ladakh, and majority of them, they come from central, they come from China. Okay. Apart from many migratory birds, we are also having resident birds, like we are having cattle egret, pond heron. This is snake bird. This is the common name, snake bird. It is also known as oriental darter. This is also endangered species, threatened species, sorry, because of the lack of habitat and shrinking of wetlands. But here in Yamuna Biodiversity Park, you will find the breeding population, and it is very good in number. Then we have kingfishers and many other birds. Now, the second wetland that we created is the narrow shallow wetland, which was also created at the same time when the deep wetland was created. And the basic idea of creating this wetland was to give a look of River Yamuna, and to attract the birds which are which have left this place because of the lack of habitat and destruction of the forest communities and all. So keeping in mind, we have given it a shape like River Yamuna. This is 1.5 kilometer long, and around its sides you will find the good forest community, very dense forest patches of Phragmites and Typha and Tamarix trees. And now what we have received by creating this wetland, this is a very popular bird or a very special bird of this area known as black crowned night heron, which was earlier seen in the whole River Yamuna floodplain area. But because the area was encroached by people, it was badly destructed. So this bird, it has started moving away from this area, and it has started making its nesting somewhere else away from the Delhi or this area. So to reintroduce this bird again in this area, we created this forest again, and we found that yes, the bird was back, and now we are having a great heronry of this bird every year. Around more than 1,000 to 1,500 nests are created every year, and it is a place which is must seen by everyone, I mean, and a lot of chicks and breeding population you can see from the months of April to June. Then a very important reptilian species, this is sea boldy snake and popularly known as moist skin snake. It is also it was, disappeared from this area because, ma'am, there is some disturbance in between. Somebody's mic is on. Please mute your mic. Thank you. This snake was last seen in Delhi in 1942. And if I talk about distribution, it is seen in the whole South Asian regions and popularly seen in India also. But in Delhi, it was last seen in 1942. And then when this park was again, restored, the whole forest community was constructed. After 60 years, we again found this snake in the park, which was a big achievement. So this is sea boldy snake. Then near the water bodies, you will find a lot of dragonflies and damselflies. Like these days, this is monsoon time here. And so these dragonflies and damselflies are very active. We are having more than 35 to 40 species of both dragonflies and damselflies. And what are their roles? That they they lay their eggs in the water. And we all know that mosquitoes, they also lay their eggs on the surface of the water. And the nymphs of the dragonflies and damselflies, they stay in the water for near about 4 months. After that, they get their maturity and they fly. So at that time, their nymphs, they eat the larva of mosquito. So they control the population of mosquito. So near the wetland area, you will never get a mosquito bite if you are in Yamuna Biodiversity Park. And that is how they are controlling the major vector-borne diseases. Now, this is an area which is known as the dense forest area and or the reserved forest area. And here you can see the vegetation is in different layers. You can see the ground vegetation, you can see the shrub layer or the herb layer. Then you will find some middle story trees and you will find some top canopy trees. They all are planted in a very systematic way so that when as you must have read that Delhi is currently also Delhi is facing the problem of particulate matter PM 2.5, PM 10, and then PM 1 also. And the pollutant size is so small that it settle everywhere and it is inhaled by people and giving people a lot of chronic lung diseases. So Delhi is also among the most polluted cities. So what was the idea behind this? That we will introduce the layered vegetation so that when the dust particles will rise up, as they are very small in size, they are very light in weight. So the dust particles, most of them, they will settle on the top canopy. Then rest of them will settle on the middle story trees, then on the shrub layer, and then on the ground vegetation. So very less will be inhaled by the person who is moving on the roadside or on the trails. But unfortunately, the trees or the vegetation which is planted on the roadside of Delhi is not of this type. So we are in a way of introducing layered vegetation on our roads as well, so that a lot of pollutants, they get settled. And also we are trying to introduce the green cover. So this is how you can see the dense forest area looks like. The temperature here is quite less than the outside area. And here you will find that this is better than the outside main road area because of the dense forest canopies. Now, with the advancement of the forest communities, we started receiving lots of leaf litter everywhere, which is very commonly seen, throughout your journey in the park. And what is the role of this leaf litter that we will see in this slide? That these leaf litter, they attract lots of small insects, aphids, and for eating them, many mantis and grasshoppers, they come, and then they are again eaten by the lizards, and then this lizard will be eaten by some shikra or some top predator or kingfisher. So this is how the food chain progress here. So this is very basic food chain that we generally show to our visitors who come here, and mainly to our students who come here, so that they can relate that how the leaf litters, they are helpful, and it is not good to burn them or to destroy them. And also these leaf litter, it will be further degraded, and it will make the humus, which is the topmost layer of your soil, excuse me. So your soil will also get improved, and it will allow more and more plants to grow here. And a lot of other insect activity you will find, like these are dung beetles. They are taking away the dung or the poop of the animal, and they are releasing back the nutrients into the soil. Then this is a very special insect which is seen here in the grasses. This is bagworm. It has created a bag-like structure on its body for its covering. It feeds on the small grass blades and then eaten by some other bird. So this is how the food chain builds from tiny insects. So we are also having a good number of reptilian species here, uh, which includes many snake species. We are also having, yeah. So yes, we are having at present we are having 11 different snake species in the park. Out of them, 3 are venomous, and rest others are non-venomous. So this is rat snake, and like in monsoon time, they are very active, so they are very commonly seen. And in winters, they go for the hibernation, so they are very less seen in the winter time. So why it is known as rat snake? Because it feeds on the rats or the rodents which are there in the uh, fields, agricultural fields. So it is also known as the farmer's friends. So when our students come here or when our visitors come here, and suddenly when we see some snake, or we see some documentary, then we give them some of the ideas that why they are known as farmer's friend, why they are important in the ecosystem. And most of the snakes, they are not venomous, so we need to take care of them. And this is how we explain to them, right? Like there are some other questions, like why the tongue is coming again and again out. So with the tongue, it sends the chemicals and the enemies or the food around it, so it also acts as a sense organ. Yes. So with the progress of our grasslands and our forest community, in few years we started receiving a lot of small Indian hares, which are herbivores, and they are very commonly seen in the park, jumping from one place to another, roaming here and there, and they feed on the grasses and some of the other plants in and around. And we're also having many bird species which are granivores. Like in winters, we receive a lot of birds. Um, like this is silver bill munia. Its beak is very small, hard, and short, for perfectly designed for eating the grains of the grasses. This is scaly-breasted munia. Again, feeds on the grasses. This is red Ava David. The upper one is male, the lower one is female, and they are feeding on the phragmitis grass blades, seeds. This is tri-colored munia, or the black-headed munia, again feeding on the phragmitis seeds. So this is how the birds, they eat the grains and they stay here for a long period of time. Similarly, when the flowers on the fruit yielding trees, when these flowers blooms, they are very, the nectar is very sweet. And so a lot of pollinators like moths, small honeybees, big honeybees, and many other insects and butterflies, wasps, they all get attracted and they take the nectar of the flowers. And similarly, like these days, we are having a good population of grasshoppers also. They are also granivores, but they are in a controlled manner. Like last year, we all have seen that how the locust population, it has destroyed a large part of crops in some parts of India, and in many parts of the world as well. But here, one thing which is important to see, that for controlling their population, we are having good species of birds here. That is how the balance in nature is created here, right? So this is feeding on the grain, then some other some other bird will feed on it. So this is how the food chain progresses. So apart from many other migratory birds, like we have many other small birds which are commonly seen throughout the year. We have bulbul, we have Asian quail, we have coppersmith barbet, we have yellow-footed green pigeon, which is a major attraction here because in Delhi, you will find the gray pigeon or the blue-gray pigeon is very commonly seen in and around, which is actually an invasive species. And because of that, all other bird species are suffering a lot. And the population of that blue-gray pigeon is also very high. And it is not giving space to other birds to live and to feed. But here in Yamuna Biodiversity Park, you will find that the population of yellow-footed gray pigeon, green pigeon is quite good in number. And in winters, they are very actively seen. So when children come, and the local residents when they come, so they feel very surprised that we have not seen such kind of bird in the area. But yes, in some parts of Delhi, in some residential areas where the greenery is all good and the fruit yielding trees are around, so this bird is also seen in some parts of resident areas as well. Now this is coppersmith barbet, which is again a very interesting bird. Its size is very small and it is very colorful. You can see on its forehead a lot of colors you can see. Why it is known as coppersmith barbet? Because it makes the sound just like a coppersmith hits on the iron utensils with a hammer. So it uses its beak, especially from, it starts doing this activity from February end or March itself, and it chooses the hollow trees, hollow trunks, and with the small beak it makes the holes inside the trunk so that before monsoon it will lay eggs, and then the chicks and the these both the parents, they live inside the that nest very comfortably. So during that time, from from late February or early March till May or June, you will find that small tuck 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 sound all around. So then you will also find other nesting birds like purple sunbird, and this is owlet, spotted owlet. Now the main thing which we discuss here is basically the nesting material. Now the birds are feeling secure here because the habitat, whatever the habitat they were in search of, we are able to provide them. We are having food material for them, we are having resting materials. Now the nesting material, which plays a very important role. So every bird is having a different type of need for making the nest. Like this is purple sunbird, so now you can see it has collected all the other material which was available. And this is spotted owlet, so its way of living, its way of making nest is totally different from this bird. So like this, we are having many other bird species. So this is not playing. So this is wild boar picture. We are having a lot of wild pigs or wild boars in our area. Earlier, they were very good in number when River Yamuna and its forest were very good in condition. But because of, again, close human habitation and destruction of habitat, even this bird, this animal was also locally extinct, but now we are having a good population. We are also having a good population of blue bull, which is popularly known as Neel Gaye, but it do not belong to the cow family, it belongs to the antelope family. And it is a largest antelope that we have. It is endemic to India, only found in India. This is male, which is bluish gray in color. It jumps very fast, up to a very great height. 5 to 6 feet easily it can jump. The female is light brown in color, very light in color as compared to this one. We're also having a good population of peafoals, and this blue bull is also the state animal of Delhi. We're also having a good population of civet, Indian civet, which is nocturnal, and this is a very small carnivore which we have. We are also having jungle cats. They are very vigilant in the night. They are very good runners, and they are also very active in the night. Then a very fine morning in 2016, in the month of November, we found one leopard inside the park, and this leopard came on its own. As we are expecting that it came from Kalesar Wildlife Sanctuary and traveled across the river Yamuna and then enters the phase 2 area, and then from phase 2, using that corridor, it came to phase 1, and we traced this animal's pug marks, and then we put the night cameras, and our team was very vigilant at that time. This animal stayed here for more than 22 days, but the forest department it won't allow that this animal stay here for a long period of time, because the human habitation is so closed here. So they were not proper measures to protect those people. So this was then captured after 22 days and shifted to somewhere in a bigger area in Uttarakhand. So the presence of leopard proved that yes, this park is functional and all the trophic levels are addressed in a very good way, starting from the producers. Like we started from the producers, then small herbivores, then carnivores, and then the top carnivore. So this shows that yes, whatever the work you have done, it was in the right direction. And I mean, for sustaining one leopard, you need at least a good population of herbivores, and for those herbivores, you need good grasses and grasslands. So the presence of the leopard and its stay here for 22 days, and the animal was loving this place. This was a young animal of 3-year-old male leopard. It was in search of its habitat. So the animal was ready to live, but the authorities and the local people, they were not. But yes, we are again hoping that very soon uh, some big cats will arrive here, and then this place will totally dedicated to these big cats. So these are some of the short clippings which were made by our team only, and they used to trace this animal from a very far distance. That what are what is the basic movement area, and yeah. So apart from these main visitor zone areas and dense forest areas, we are also conserving some small conservatories. Like this is medicinal plants conservatory, or popularly known as herbal garden, where we have conserved more than 250 medicinal plants in this area. We are also having butterfly conservatory, gene bank conservatory. So we will move inside few of them. And here what we do, we have planted a lot of small medicinal plants which are very commonly found in the river Yamuna floodplain area. And what people are already using them, but they are not aware that which part of the plant is useful. So like this is known as Barlaria prionitis, and popularly known as Vajradanti. And there is a very popular toothpaste brand, Vico Vajradanti, which we all are using. So Vico company is promoting this plant, but students when they come here, they feel very surprised, and the local people when they come here, that ma'am, which part of the plant is used and how it is helpful. So basically the leaves are useful. And Vajradanti is a Sanskrit word. Vajra is a very strong thing and Danti means teeth. So this is how we explain them, that the leaves, the extract of the leaf, it helps your teeth to get strong. That's how it is added in the toothpaste. And then we are having some other plants, like this is Isabgol, which is also known as Plantago major. This is a wild variety of Plantago. The Plantago ovata is actually the variety from which the husk of the seed is eaten. But we need to conserve the wild varieties as well. So we show this to our children, students, and the local people. Then this plant on the left side is known as Hat Chod. Hat jod is a Hindi word which means the plant which has the property of healing the fractured bones. Okay, haddi ko jodna types. So basically uh, the gel inside it, or the when we smash it, uh, we apply the paste on the broken part area, or we can chew it, we can eat it. This is edible also. So it fastens the healing process. Then this is Abrus precatorius. It is popularly known as Rati, and the seeds of the Rati, they are very, popular. They are highly poisonous. So this is how, we explain them. The leaves are very useful. If we boil the leaves, it will cure the fever, but the seeds are not useful. Directly we cannot use them. And there are many researches on the seeds that if somebody takes it, it gives you immediate cardiac arrest. So how we can use it, there are different processes. But yes, we show them the seeds because these seeds are the standardized unit of measuring gold. In earlier times it was used, and in many tribal jewelry this rati becomes a very important part. So this is how we explain them. Then we are having some other plants like akarkara. This is the fruit of the flower of the plant is used for curing the pain. And in earlier times it was used in it was given as anesthesia also. This is Satavar, also known as very popular, medicine known as Satavari is prepared from the roots, dry roots of the plant, which is very popular in many parts, in many Ayurvedic stores. People get it so easily. This is known as Tylophora asthmatica, or known as Antamul in Hindi. Um, Many researches have been done on this plant. This is also known as Damabale. This is a climber. And many researches also proves that if you chew the leaf, one leaf daily, it will give you cure from the oldest asthma and dama or cough problem. So a city like Delhi, where we have a lot of air pollution throughout the year, I think this is very useful for the people. This is a small water lily pond inside the medicinal garden conservatory, where we have given it a look of River Yamuna, that how River Yamuna looks initially when it was in a good condition. So a lot of water lilies and many other important plants, they are grown all around. So the tiny plants that you can see on the edges is Bacopa monarai, which is also known as Brahmi booty. And also there are capsules and tonics available. And there is Centrala asiatica and many other plant species in this pond. Now we are moving towards our to our butterfly conservatory area, which is again a very important part of the section of the park. And these days the butterflies are good in number, and in September we observe butterfly month. So we will count the butterflies as per our previous records. We are having more than 75 species of butterflies in our park. This is small salmon Arab butterfly. It is feeding on the Jatropha plant. And butterflies not only make our surrounding beautiful, but they are an indicator of a healthy environment. And they are a very good pollinators. So we need. Oh, that is. Please mute yourself. Yes. So in our butterfly conservatory, we show our common people who are coming and the students who are coming, that how butterflies and what are the different stages of butterflies, starting from the egg stage to the caterpillars to the pupa and then to the adult butterfly. So these are two different butterflies. Like the butterfly which we saw in the previous slide was small Salmonella butterfly. It was feeding on Jatropha plant, but it laid eggs on the Salvadora persica tree. And so now here we can understand that the nectar plant and the host plant, they are different for a butterfly. So we need to do a very systematic plantation, that what are the different host plants for the butterflies and what are the different nectar giving plants for the butterflies. So in our conservatory you will find lots of small flowering plants and a lot of other host plants for the butterflies, on which they will lay the eggs. And this is plain tiger butterflies caterpillar. It is feeding on the Calotropis plant. So this is a very beautiful life cycle of common crow butterfly, starting from the egg, then caterpillar, then the initial stage of pupa, then the final stage of pupa, and then the emergence of a adult butterfly. So when students come here, they feel very excited, they take photographs, and they understand that yes, how different plants are important for the butterflies, and how butterflies are important in the food chain and in making the ecosystem more sustaining. So this is how we are having different butterflies. We are having blue pansy, we are having dented egg fly, we are having yellow pansy, painted lady. This is common castor butterfly, very beautifully camouflaged, taking the nectar. These are again small periost butterflies. So now this slide will help you in understanding that how butterflies, they become a part of food chain. Like we see that many caterpillars, they are a very good source of protein. So they are eaten up by many birds. This is oriental white eye. It is eating the bird. It is eating the caterpillar. Then spiders, they also feed on the butterflies. This is praying mantis, again feeding on the butterflies. And birds also, they feed on the butterfly. So this is paradise flycatcher bird, female bird. It is feeding on the butterfly. And this is how the small bird is eaten by the large predator. This is shikra, right? So this is how the energy flows in the ecosystem. And you can see it directly in the park. And these small, tiny things, and each individual, it makes up the Yamuna Biodiversity Park. So this is our Nature Interpretation Center. After visiting the park for around 1 hour or 1.5 hour based on the discussion, students come to this gallery area. We are having 3 different galleries here where we have exhibits, we are having different signages, we are having different information. We're also having a documentary for the students, which is for around 8 to 9 minutes, and they see that how different biodiversity parks in Delhi region, it is helping Delhi people to survive and to live a better life here. So we are having 7 different biodiversity parks in Delhi, which includes Aravali Biodiversity Park, Tughlakabad Biodiversity Park, Kamla Nehru Ridge, Neela Haus, and Tilpat Valley Biodiversity Park, and of course Yamuna Biodiversity Park is the oldest one. So this is how we show them. And I mean, we are every year a lot of students, they used to come and they feel the nature here and different activities, but because of this pandemic they are not able to come. So from the last November itself we started doing the virtual visits, and more than our expectation, we found that yes, a lot of colleges and schools and many other organizations, they have turned on, and we have seen a huge participation from everyone. We are expecting that those who are viewing this right now, whenever you will get a chance to visit Delhi, please come and visit this area, and you will feel that yes, this place is worth visiting. And other areas also, like I have mentioned Aravali Biodiversity Park, Tilpat Valley, Tughlakabad, and Aravali and Yamuna, they are the life supporting systems of Delhi, and they both are in degraded condition. If you see the condition of Aravali coming from Rajasthan, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana, and ending up in Delhi, Aravali is also facing a huge problem of uh, you know um, invasive plant species. But in Aravali Biodiversity Park, which is in Vasant Vihar, Delhi, you will find that yes, that area is beautifully restored. It is spread in 692 acres of area, larger than this Yamuna Biodiversity Park. And you will find, yes, there were clay mines and moram mines there. So the huge pits are there, but how beautifully that area is restored. And again, the Kamla Nehru Ridge area and Neela Haus. Neela Haus is again a very beautiful area to visit. We are also coming up with another biodiversity park, which is Kalandi Biodiversity Park, where we have restored the area by making the constructed wetlands. And these wetlands, they will collect the sewage water first, and with the help of many grasses, more than 25 species of grasses, that those grasses which will clean up the sewage water, and then by passing it on to different stages for few hours, then you will get clean water, and then that water will be released in river Yamuna. So this is our future strategy of cleaning river Yamuna. So you can see that in action how work is done. And like if you see the wetland areas, the 100-acre wetland, which is a phase 2 area, Yamuna Biodiversity Park, is restoring a lot of that flood water, and it is an ideal habitat for migratory and resident bird species. It enhances the groundwater recharge, and it also acts as a sink for carbon dioxide and other pollutants. And it also, makes the local weather more comfortable for people to live. It also promotes the social connectivity. It also serves as a gene pool. A lot of small medicinal plants, they are growing near the wetland areas. They act as a nursery, and we bring those plants to phase 1 area and we grow them here. And this whole park represent a unique ecological model, and it has different educational values also. University of Delhi has made it mandatory. And all other universities in and around Delhi, they have made it mandatory to visit this area. And while studying the environmental studies paper in the first semester of their first year, please mute yourself. Yes. So the students come here. It is compulsory for them to visit any of the biodiversity parks of Delhi. Recently, government of Delhi has also made it compulsory to visit any of the biodiversity parks. So in 2019, I remember there were more than 75,000 students of schools only, they visited this area. but after that, that pandemic and the lockdown situation was there. But yes, we are hoping that very soon the park will be reopened for the students. So this is all from our side. Now, if you have any question, if you have any suggestions, you can write it in the chat box. Thank you.
Participants, you can unmute and ask the question. Dr. Fayaz had to leave the session due to some emergency, so Ms. Preeti would be taking up the questions.
Hello, ma'am.
Good evening.
Yes, please ask.
Ma'am,
Hello.
so you spoke regarding the biodiversity of the butterfly with regard to different plant species.
Mhm.
And after Corona, like, I'm pretty sure the, institute was shut. And was there any difference in the new arrival of the species or any changes, ma'am?
Yes, very valid question you have asked. Last year and this year also, we found that during the lockdown period, the butterfly population and the number was very good. It was increased. Like we have observed here, our yellow orange tip butterfly or white orange tip butterfly, they were very good in number. Small salmon arab butterfly, and I think this is because of the less pollution outside, and bird species also, there were good number of birds all around, because I mean, there was lockdown period, so people were inside, and the air quality was comparatively good, and there was no noise pollution, and these birds, they find it very difficult to communicate when there is noise outside. So like we all have experienced here in Delhi in our resident areas also, I mean, different sounds of birds and different calls of birds during the early hours or during the evening hours, they were very common, and similar thing was there in the park also. The animals, they were very happy. Still, I mean, till date they feels that yes, there are less people outside, I mean, in and around, because the workers are also coming on their rotation basis. So the animals, they come very near to the main gate or to the office area, or to the premises where we are sitting, so they feel very comfortable. Similarly with all the species. Yes, so this was the change that we have seen.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Preeti ma'am, we have a question from Dr. Dakshayani.
Yes, ma'am, please.
What are the plans used for the remediation of salinity?
I mentioned it earlier also, like we used Leptoclova fusca grass, which was actually, observed by the team of scientists while they were sitting in the paddy field area. In initial time, what they used to do in, I mean, when there was nothing in the park, so they used to go to the nearby farmers areas, and they used to sit with them. They used to discuss with them. So one day they found that strange grass was coming when the paddy was harvested. So they brought that grass to the laboratory. They discussed it with Professor C.R. Babu, and they found that yes, it is Leptoclova fusca grass, and they searched on it on internet and books, and they found that yes, it is very good in reducing the salinity. Apart from this, we also introduce Suda fruticosa, which is also known as Nuni ghas in local language here, and when it absorbs the salt, it turns red. So Leptoclova fusca is no more growing here because the salinity has reduced, but yes, at many places you will find Suda fruticosa is still there. Excuse me, means there is some salinity is still remaining. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other queries?
Hello, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sorry, my question is, how can said model be replicated in other environments, ma'am? How easy would it be?
Yes, it's very interesting question. Now this model is very unique. So recently NGT, National Green Tribunal, and CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, their teams visited this area, And yes, so they have given approval that the I mean the people from different states, like recently I remembered that a team of Chhattisgarh forest department people, they visited here, they had their training here. Today we are having some persons from Madhya Pradesh, they are visiting Aravali. So Dr. Fayaz is actually busy there. So they are getting the basic idea and they are having their few days training here for this area. Recently Kanpur is coming up with some biodiversity parks. Chhattisgarh will come with a huge number of more than 30 parks in the area. So I mean, the team from here, they sometimes they visit there, or the people they come here, they discuss about what type of vegetation is there, and then the suggestions are given to them that how the restoration will take place in your area. Of course, this is different from the any other area. Like the restoration strategy of Aravali and Yamuna is totally different while we are in Delhi only. So it will be different for other states also. So sometimes the people come here, or sometimes our team members, they go there and they give their suggestions on all the official basis. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And just another question: did you encounter growth of any invasive plant species, ma'am? And if yes, how did you combat them?
Yes, very valid question again. Initially, in the Aravali region areas, we were facing the problem of Prosopis juliflora, which is also known as Valaiti kikar, right? But
Yes, ma'am.
as per the forest laws, you cannot cut the trees, right? So what we are doing, like our Professor C.R. Babu, who has come with a strategy that heavily pruning of the trees, so that less number of leaf fall will come place, or the fruiting will not come place, or the flowering will not, take place. And this is how the tree is still surviving, but we are not allowing it to shed most of the leaves and to multiply or to give the fruits. So this is how we are maintaining it. And under the shade of that tree, we are trying to we are still experimenting to introduce some of the climbers, some of the shrubs, some of the hardy species of grasses, so that the barren area which is under the Prosopis juliflora, it is still it will cover with some of the green patch of grasses. So this is how we are doing. We
Yes,
are
ma'am.
not
Thank you.
removing the stretch at a we are not clearing any stretch.
Mm.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
So I had a question like, how frequently do you update the database, or like the number of species of some particular animal that is already present, or some new arrivals to your park? And do you maintain any software or some database where you like save all it, and is it accessible to public?
Yes, a very nice question again. Yes, we have a website, so you can search on Delhi Biodiversity Parks website, where all the 7 parks and their details are mentioned and they are updated. And more than this, after every count, like in every January, we do the bird count. In every September, we do the butterfly count. So we publish it in the newspapers. So all the leading newspapers which are there for the people, they print it on the social media. You can also go to our Facebook page. You can also, and Delhi Development Authority publish it on the Twitter account also. And very recently we have launched our coffee table book, which is available on our website, freely available, which is available on the DDA's, Delhi Development Authority's website. And you can read it. It is having all the latest information of the 7 parks. So yes, we are coming up with new things again and again. So I think from there you can have a look, and you can see that what are the new things which are added in the park.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Any more queries?
I hope this session must be useful for the students to understand, uh, and that why a city like Delhi, which is having problem of pollution, groundwater level is also very less. Delhi is also facing the problem of water. So we are having things in our hand. The only thing is to use it in a right way. Like the amount of water that we are receiving during the monsoon, if it is collected in a right way, or if it is stored under the ground, I mean, Delhi will never face a problem of water scarcity. So in the next master plan 2041, we are expecting that yes, we will be able to conserve all the rainwater, all the flood water, and that water will be provided to the citizens of Delhi, and Delhi will not face any problem of water scarcity anymore, especially the regions like Aravali or the South Delhi regions. Like recently, we had a very good rainfall last week. So if now the major area of the park is having a very good amount of water, the soil is
That is why I didn't tell.
somebody's mic is on. So if you see, the soil is fully saturated. It is not accepting the water in the floodplain area, and I mean the so what we are seeing, that how the other parts of the floodplains, they can be utilized to store the water in a similar way. Yes. I think there are no more questions now. Somebody is raising hand. Dr. Ranjana Singh, I guess.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning, ma'am. Myself, Dr. Ranjana Singh. I am assistant professor in Kelly College. My question is, near Gokul in Yamuna River, there is a water hyacinth is so much. Then how to remove that water hyacinth? Due to this, there is a more pollution there, and foam formation is so much because all industrial effluents, they are just falling in the Yamuna River.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Water hyacinth problem is very commonly seen. So it can be removed manually, ma'am. It can be removed manually. This is what I have seen in our floodplain area. That I mean, for cleaning our wetlands, I mean, what we do, we need to spend some time on it. So the person who is expert in, I mean, boat riding and all, we take that person into the wetland, and within a week or within few days, the whole area, I mean, whatever the plants we required, we keep it in number, and some other plants also we keep it in less numbers, right? So this is how, I mean, we are cleaning our wetlands up now. What is the exact problem at Gokul, that I cannot comment here right now. I mean, one need to go and survey that area and see what are the other effluents that are coming. Are there industries nearby, or household waste is coming, or why the foam formation is taking place? And of course, water hyacinth is a big problem, so that can be removed, and very little can be, left there. So, I mean, keeping in mind all these things, we can do some kind of treatment, man. But exactly what is the problem, that we will, I mean, the team can survey, and then it will give any remark on that.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Preeti, for an informative session. Now I call upon Dr. Shalini Bu, Head Department of Botany, Mount Carmel College, to propose. I request all the participants to mute their speakers. Mic.
Thank you, Sandhya. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. I take this opportunity to thank the speaker of today's talk, Dr. Fayaz Ahmed, the scientist in charge of Yamuna Biodiversity Park, and Ms. Preeti for taking their time off their busy schedule and enlightening us on the restoration of the ecosystem of Yamuna Biodiversity Park. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I also take this opportunity to thank the management of our college, the principal, Dr. Sister Arpana, the vice principal, Dr. Shamin Jaru, the campus coordinators, and the deans of science for their constant encouragement and support. I extend my thanks to my department colleagues for their constant support and cooperation in organizing this event. I would take this opportunity to record my heartfelt thanks to all the participants for taking their time off and being a part of this program. Thank you, one and all. Over to you, Sandhya.
Thank you, Shalini ma'am. Feedback link will be posted to the registered WhatsApp number or email IDs. Now we have come to the end of the session. Thank you all the participation from various colleges and the students and the teachers, those who have made this session a lively one. Thank you all once again. We will end this meeting.